The secret sauce to being a successful leader on LinkedIn is not about creating content, because LinkedIn is not measuring your content for value, unlike Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, where your content drives them revenue to their advertisers. On LinkedIn, their goal is to connect you and I together and to start a conversation. It is not to entertain us. It's not to educate us. It's not to distract us. It is to connect us to start a conversation.
Welcome to the Thrive Podcast, where we dive deep into tech entrepreneurship and strategic growth. I'm your host, Bill Potter, founder of Thrive Advisors, and I'm here to guide tech-led founders through the maze of challenges on their journey to maximizing enterprise valuations. Whether it's scaling your team, navigating market shifts, or unlocking new revenue streams, we'll explore actionable strategies and insights to help you thrive in today's competitive landscape. Join me as we uncover the secrets to strategic growth and success in tech startups. Get ready to unlock the full potential of LinkedIn with our next podcast guest, Richard Bliss. Renowned as a LinkedIn strategist extraordinaire, Richard has been on a mission to revolutionize how professionals and businesses leverage the power of this platform for career advancement and business growth. With his expert guidance, countless individuals have transformed their LinkedIn profiles into powerful personal brands, creating meaningful connections and unlocking new opportunities. It's time to take your LinkedIn game to the next level with Richard Bliss. Welcome to the podcast, Richard.
Bill, a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So tell me, what sparked your interest in becoming a LinkedIn strategist?
One of the key things, having been a chief marketing officer for a variety of technology companies over the years, I was leading a company as the global VP of marketing, and they fired me, and they gave my job to my wife. Talk about awkward, and ex-wife now. But the point is that I literally had to reinvent myself after having been the face of my industry, traveling, speaking in 22 countries, and suddenly found myself in a position where the tools and network that I had built up were no longer available to me, and I had to reinvent my brand, myself, and my voice. And LinkedIn became a natural extension for that as I began to dive into it, understand how it worked, and saw the revolutionary, transformational nature it can have. And so that, in a short nutshell, there's a lot more to that story, but that gives you an idea why I kind of pursued that.
Well, that's great. So for our viewers who might be new to LinkedIn, can you explain why it's become so crucial of a platform for professionals and businesses?
Yeah, and it comes down to one word. The word's trust. In today's world, it is so hard. We're facing a crisis of trust. Are you who you say you are? Have you done what you said you've done? How can I believe so much that I see online, misinformation, whatever it might be? And LinkedIn has really positioned itself as the platform of trust. And so what happens is, Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? Famous quote, because that's where the money is. Why should I be on LinkedIn as a business leader? Because that's where 100% of your customers are. 100% of your partners, your vendors, they're not on Instagram, they're not on Facebook, they're not on TikTok. If they are, they're not telling you, and you don't probably want to see their dance moves. But on LinkedIn, every single one of them is there. And so you should be, as a leader, thinking about how can I leverage this platform where the platform itself is putting me in touch with the very people I want to do business with, whether that's an investor, a client, a vendor, a partner, or a fellow employee that I want to recruit. It started off as a job platform, but now has become what I call the digital identity or digital hub of our online identity.
Fascinating. So what are some of the common mistakes people make when they're trying to optimize their LinkedIn profiles, and how can they avoid them?
Well, there's several, and we could go in a lot of different directions. Let's start with, first of all, thinking that it's a resume replacement. It's not. It's an active place for you to engage in the conversations that are relevant to your customers, your partners, your vendors. And so realizing that you need to be actively participating is one mistake. The other one is thinking that anything you've learned on the other social media platforms applies to LinkedIn. And I see this happening all the time. And that is LinkedIn is the upside down world of social media. Everything you do on LinkedIn that you've learned from Facebook or Instagram, it's going to sabotage your efforts to be successful on LinkedIn. They're not in the business of driving outcomes similar to the other platforms. Those platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, we know they make money off of advertising, off of us. That's not the way LinkedIn works. You, myself, many of my clients, whether they're startups or enterprises, are using subscription tools. LinkedIn Premium, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Recruiter. Some of my clients spend over $1 million a year on these tools. Well, that means the audience, or us, members of the LinkedIn platform, are in essence paying to be there. And there's very few social media platforms we're willing to pay to be on. Elon Musk discovered that to his chagrin and a loss of $48 billion, that people aren't paying for those social media platforms. And so this is the thing to think about, is that LinkedIn, you need to see it as a completely different approach to how you use online presence, social media, and that the audience is there. So those key things, thinking that it's just another social media platform and thinking it's just a job site, restrict and limit a leader's ability to have a massive impact on the audiences they're trying to influence.
Very good. So in that vein, can you share some tips or some guidance on crafting a compelling LinkedIn profile headline and how that effectively showcases one's skills or expertise or even the business itself?
Yeah, and oftentimes we start with that, right? The LinkedIn profile, which I call your digital identity, your digital hub, because I talk to a lot of leaders, startups, enterprise CEOs. I live here in Silicon Valley. And as I talk to them, oftentimes they say, I'm not that interested in LinkedIn. You know, I have a job. I don't need a job, and I don't need people hitting me up for a job. But Bill, here's an example of a client who came to me, the CEO of a company, who approached me and said, I need your help. They had a 6-figure deal coming up, and on Friday, and the salesperson had set up the sales call, and then on Thursday it got canceled. And the CEO reached out to the sales rep and said, what happened? And sheepishly, the sales rep said, they looked at your LinkedIn profile and didn't see that you were a serious individual that they could trust with their investment, and they went with somebody else. He called me and said, I never want that to happen again. And so that LinkedIn profile, so what I read, I'll go out and I look at hundreds, if not thousands of LinkedIn profiles as I work with salespeople and leaders. And I often see regularly exceeds quota, makes club every year, aggressively grows revenue in target accounts. Those are the opening lines in their about section as a salesperson. And I'm thinking, what does your customer think when they see that? Because that's who's looking at it more than a recruiter or a hiring manager. And when I bring this up publicly in front of their peers, we call that social shaming. They suddenly realize how they're projecting themselves. Well, when it came to the same for leaders, is that I had a call this morning, CEO of a major global brand. I won't say them because I don't want to embarrass them, but their team said, what do you think about this? Had no banner image, had a picture that was relevant but very far away. I hardly could recognize his face, had his title, and then for an about section, it basically said 25-year veteran, demonstrated skill at P&L and organization. I said, it looks like your CEO is looking for a job and is really not present. And so this is some of the things to think about. Find a banner image that captures some of that visual brand, a picture that is cropped at the collarbone. Men tend to, Bill, you would not believe how many wedding photos I see of men standing in receiving lines thinking they look good in a tux. That is not a joke. And particularly two individuals, it was their wedding. And they're like, well, I looked good. That's the best picture I have. I'm like, okay, but you don't want to present yourself. And then for women, they often have hair or an outfit that they want to highlight. And so you'll find them from the waist up, far from the camera. We look at the picture, the very first thing, because we want to see a face that we can trust. Crop it at the collarbone, center your face, make the nose right in the middle. That's number 2. A headline that clearly identifies what you do, CEO, CFO, and then the company that you represent, because in the business-to-business world, we use that company name to fit you into our ecosystem. If you reach out to me to connect, are you a customer, a partner, a vendor, a competitor? I want to know. And then the last one is the about section, which can be very difficult for leaders to create because they feel self-promotional. And so I help them write it, for example, saying, in my career, having had, for example, I will see 20 plus years in the industry. Okay? In other words, you started your career in the late 1900s, and you think by announcing that, your younger generation's going to be impressed. No, they're not. But you're using that number as a shortcut to say, hey, I'm experienced. No, you're out of touch, particularly in the SaaS world. In the SaaS world and generative AI and what we're dealing with today, think about this younger generation, and they look at their leader and they see the about section that says 25 plus years. And they're thinking, what technology did you possibly have in the late 1900s that is relevant today? So we don't think about it that way. And so what we want to do is change that about section to say, if I have 25 years, how does that apply to a generation today that could find value? For example, you and I both probably remember where we were on December 31st, 1999. Mm-hmm. Right? I had one executive say he was filling up his bathtub full of water. The interns in the room as I was presenting looked at each other. And I said, I addressed them. I said, you're probably wondering why a CEO would be filling up his bathtub full of water on New Year's Eve. I said, it's Y2K. And I said, do you know what that means? And they said, yeah, that's a clothing brand. No. Or we both remember where we were on 9/11, right? And the emotional impact that had. But it also transformed the way we thought about business continuity, both 9/11 and Y2K. And then the 2008 financial crisis, when we thought about that. These are things that we as senior leaders have been through. I don't need to say 25 plus years, but I can talk about the lessons learned having transformed and passed through these events. These are some things to think about how you communicate to your audience, how you want to present yourself. Here are my experiences and why they apply to you today, the so what, versus here's a quick list of my skills, my experience, and a summary of my resume, which nobody really cares about. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's a long-winded answer to a very short question.
No, it's a great answer. I can tell you that in my travels, I've had some senior executives say that the less you put into your LinkedIn profile, the better, because if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, they have very little on their LinkedIn. So that's antithetical to what you're saying. And I couldn't agree with you more that you really have to be able to communicate with your audience to convey that trust. And
I hear that, Bill, I also hear that every day. Less is more.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but let's suppose you're seeking investors and they don't know you. So they go to your LinkedIn profile, they see a beautiful picture, they see a photo, and then they see this about section and it says see more, right? There's a little see more after the first 3 lines. And they click the see more button and they see 2 more lines of information. How do they feel? They're like, wait, that's it? And I ask my audience, why would anyone click the see more button? What are they hoping to see?
Validation.
More.
Trust. Yeah.
Right? And this is your opportunity to connect with your customers, your partners, your employees. And the only people who are going to see that are the people who have self-selected and said, I want to learn more about this individual. And that's a false narrative that they look at these successful people who have so little. Well, yeah, one of my clients is a billionaire. He founded a multi-billion-dollar company, and it says, joined a tech startup. Well, he can get away with that because he's worth billions. But if I'm a startup leader, I need to convey trust to my audience that's learning from me. And the best way to do that is to make myself human and connectable. And that about section is critical to that.
I agree. So with regard to content creation and sharing on LinkedIn, what types of content tend to perform the best?
Okay, this is an upside down answer. Because when we think about social media, it's all about content creation, right? It's about creating content, putting our voice out there. But I'm going to stop right here and we're going to nip this in the bud and we're going to back up, because the secret sauce to being a successful leader on LinkedIn is not about creating content, because LinkedIn is not measuring your content for value, unlike Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, where your content drives them revenue to their advertisers. On LinkedIn, their goal is to connect you and I together and to start a conversation. It is not to entertain us. It's not to educate us. It's not to distract us. It is to connect us, to start a conversation. So if you are creating content on LinkedIn, think about the fact that text only does best. Video does worse by 10x, which always shocks people. You're like, what? Video's everything. Not on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's measuring pretty much one thing when it comes to the effectiveness of your content. And that one thing is, did you start a conversation? Now, here's what's also interesting, is that when you put out content, when you publish something on LinkedIn, it does not go to your audience. So, Bill, I don't know how many people you're connected to, but let's suppose it's 10,000. So when you put out a piece of content on LinkedIn, it does not go to 10,000 people. It goes to less than 10%. So let's suppose it goes to 1,000 people. That's still pretty good. Unless, of course, your post has a link in it, then LinkedIn cuts that post in half by 50%, because you're driving the conversation off their platform, and they don't like that. Oh, and then by the way, if it has a video or a stock image, like a preview image that loads from the link, now it's going to continue to drive down your reach, because LinkedIn it's not that it doesn't like video. It's that it's watching how that small subset of your audience is reacting to that piece of content. And they're looking for one behavior. Did people leave a meaningful comment on that post? And this is what happens with video, is that people don't comment on the video. They don't think the video is going to talk back to them. But if you write up text and I scan it and I read it and I leave a comment, I kind of expect that you're going to respond back to me. And that's what LinkedIn's measuring. Your content, is it driving a conversation? Are you starting people talking back and forth? And here's a secret. If you put out a piece of content on LinkedIn and you can get 10 comments, that's all you need, in the first 60 minutes, LinkedIn will show your post to a minimum of 1,000 people in the next 24 hours. I train interns all the time, and they'll have 30 connections. Doesn't matter. If you can get 10 comments on that post, LinkedIn will show it to 1,000 people. It's the conversation that's being measured, not the quality of the content. And so this is something to think about for your audience, as they're creating content. One, I just threw a whole lot of truth bombs out there that's shocking them. Links, video, stock images, and they're like, wait, that's all of our content. Wait, that's the show. Oh no, what are we doing wrong? And that's where you have to rethink and say, okay, did we start a conversation on the platform that got people talking? And text does that better than any other type of content.
Now, does that have to be original content, or are you sharing an article that you find fascinating?
Oh, great question. So if you make a post and I hit the repost button because I liked what you had to say and I'm going to share it with my audience, LinkedIn shows it to 1% of my audience. 1%. And if I add my own thoughts, oh, hey, Bill made this great post, I'm going to hit and here's my thoughts on it. LinkedIn hides it from even more people.
Wow.
You also only get one post a day. Now, let's be careful here. I am only talking about your personal pages, not your company pages, because on the company page, your content only goes to 2% of your audience. So 2% of your people are seeing content on your company page. So nobody's seeing it anyway. Mm-hmm. But on your personal page, if you hit the repost button, it goes to 1%. If you hit the repost button with your own thoughts, it goes to even fewer people. And you only get that one post a day. If you post more often than that, LinkedIn hides your content from the subsequent posts from your audience. And so, yeah, it's all about keeping people on the platform. So, for example, if you wanted to share an article, let's say it's a Forbes article. What you want to do is write up and explain what in that article you want your audience to know, and then don't include the link to the article. Either there's two options, main options. One, put it in the comments below. And you see this on LinkedIn all the time. Here's the link to the comments below. They're bypassing that penalty. Or edit the post immediately, add the link, and resave the post. That also bypasses the penalty. This allows you to share a piece of content. But remember, excuse me, you want to keep the audience on the platform. So whatever it is you want them to read or watch or listen to, make sure there's text that tells them what that information is so they don't have to go listen, go watch, or go read. It's right there, what you want them to take away. And oftentimes they'll leave a comment engaging with you in a conversation.
You know, LinkedIn offers various features and tools such as LinkedIn Groups, LinkedIn Plus. How can users leverage this to enhance their presence and networking efforts? And also, can you add, separately, with regard to marketing departments for companies, and how they can best leverage LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, let's talk. There's several things there. So LinkedIn Groups are getting better. Let's just put that, to be generous. Let's say they're getting better. They've really struggled. Facebook groups are so much better, and a lot of LinkedIn experts go to Facebook to participate in the group chats and discussions. The groups can be helpful, but they are limiting. If you put content on the group, it doesn't get pushed to your broader network. It's a kind of a walled garden approach. LinkedIn Premium is being enhanced. It's kind of expensive. I think the price just went up $50 or $60 a month. For a small company or individual, that can be a little bit pricey, but you get a series of benefits from that. More and more of those benefits. Premium allows you. You're seeing as LinkedIn continues to grow, is like, look, we're going to continue to add features, but you're going to have to pay for them, because they're discovering that we will pay for them because we continue to find LinkedIn valuable. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is an incredibly powerful tool. It runs about $1,000 to $1,200 a year per license. So it can be pricey if you've got 100 salespeople. That's a kind of a expensive purchase, but it can have so much impact, even for a small solopreneur. To give you an idea, just before this our recording, I was on Sales Navigator because I'm doing a small speaking event in Greenville, South Carolina next week. Right? A tiny little event. It's a little personal at a coffee shop. I'm going to be in town, and I thought I'll just throw up it on Eventbrite. Well, I went into Sales Navigator and said, I want to see everybody I have a first degree connection with in Greenville, South Carolina, and anybody who's a CEO or an executive that maybe I have a second degree connection with in Greenville, South Carolina. Boom, Sales Navigator pulls it up, lets me identify the key individuals. I can save it to a list. I can go back now and send messages to those people, which I'm doing to send out those invitations. Sales Navigator provides incredibly powerful tools if you understand how LinkedIn's working. And so those are some key elements of how those tools work. Now, on the company side, the challenge with a company page on LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is not in the business necessarily of providing free platform for your company content. They are not a dumping ground for your marketing content, unlike Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, some of those, right? You can just shove it out there. LinkedIn's like, look, we're going to show it to 2% of your audience, and if you want it to be a bigger audience, you're going to have to pay for it. Advertising, boosting posts. But with that said, there's a unique change they made just recently, and that's called thought leadership ads. Now, what this is that your employee makes a post. Let's suppose it's the CEO. That's always easier. The CEO makes a post on their personal page. Now, it's going to go to 10% of their audience. If they can start a conversation, it's going to be shown to wider people. But now on the company page, you can go into your advertising campaign and pick thought leadership and identify the employee, in this case, the CEO, pick their post and now put money behind it to target a specific audience. That's not something you can do with your personal page. I can't target a specific audience with my personal page. I can influence it, but I can't pick it. But if you have a company page, this is why from a solopreneur to an enterprise, you should always have some kind of company page that allows you to put a little bit of money behind targeting an audience with your personal content. And this is new. It's called Thought Leadership. It came out late last year, and it's a way for companies to boost and promote their employees' content. And this is something I teach, Bill, is that you should always be leading your company message through your employees on LinkedIn and then sharing their content to the company page, not the other way around. And most people put it on the company page, which goes to 2%, and then have their employees share it, which goes to 1%. Nobody's seeing that content. And so flip it, put it on the employee page. Bill will have you be the example here. We'll have an announcement coming out about something. You'll say it. And now the company page will reshare it to their profile, thereby giving you a boost and taking the content and putting it on their company page. And so this is it's a transformational way of thinking about how to use LinkedIn. You also really can't use automated tools because LinkedIn's watching to see if you're present. So if you're posting and ghosting and not participating in the conversation, LinkedIn's not going to reward you with a further reach beyond pretty much that 10%. I'm dropping them here, aren't I? Just
yeah,
boom,
you are.
Boom, boom.
Well, I think one question that the audience is probably thinking right now based on all that is, LinkedIn is constantly evolving, as you're telling me, and introducing new features on a regular basis. In addition to talking directly with you and your organization, how do they stay updated on the trends and best practices?
That's a challenge because LinkedIn will often, like most SaaS companies, they'll roll out features incrementally, right? And sometimes they won't announce it and then they'll just test it and sometimes they'll pull it back. And so you see that just like with any company. One of the best places to go is my company sponsors and partners with a gentleman by the name of Richard Vanderblom. And Richard and I, everybody seems to be named Richard in the LinkedIn space. Richard and I sponsor his research, and what he's done now for the 4th or 5th year is research all of this data that I'm dropping to your audience, and then putting it in together in an annual algorithm report. The latest one came out 2 months ago. Latest one came out 2 months ago. It's 125 pages of dense data telling you exactly how all of this works. I distill it into language that allows people to act on it. You can find a copy of it on my website, blisspointconsult.com/research. If you go there, you'll be able to download a copy of it. It doesn't cost anything, and we deliver it every year. And so this is one of the best ways to stay on top of it, to follow myself or Richard Vanderblom on LinkedIn as he continues to put that content out there. That's just one of the best ways. And then he and I have a book coming out in October. Working title is currently Hacking the LinkedIn Algorithm to Accelerate Your Business, simply because that's what people kind of want to know is like, how does this work and how do I apply it to my business?
Well, tell me more about that. I mean, if you can share a little bit of a preview of this book, it sounds fascinating.
Well, I've shared a lot of it, what you've just been hearing, and that is how you have to rethink differently your approach to LinkedIn. How you use, one of the things that we cover in the book that I teach to a lot of salespeople is how to use LinkedIn to approach that high-profile, high-value target account that doesn't know who you are, right? I work with a lot of startups here in Silicon Valley that, just like your audience, who are like, okay, we're trying to grow, we're trying to get attention, and then they hit that point where it doesn't seem to be moving forward. And so one of the things is I have to come in and say, look, your audience is on LinkedIn, but your methods are Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok efforts, and you're not reaching anybody. Make these simple changes, and you've heard of me say a couple of them, put out content that comes out of the executives instead of out of the company. But here's a tip, a technique. Let's suppose we have a target account. Let's suppose it's the CIO of a large enterprise company, multinational company that we want to get in front of because maybe it's a CISO, and we have a security product that we think would be beneficial for them. Now, the last thing they're going to want is a cold call or a cold email or a cold connection request from yet another vendor trying to sell them something. But instead, you do this. You go and watch their behavior on LinkedIn, and you find something they've posted. First, go leave a comment. Say, Susan, this was a really fascinating approach that you've taken here. As I read the article or the video, I found this was a takeaway. As I work with my own clients here at our company around this particular topic, here's how we've seen to apply this. Thank you very much for showing that. Boom, that comment is going to go to Susan, the CISO. If she responds, your comment is now going to be put in nearly 1/3 of her audience. It's going to be shoved into their feed. Your comment, and this is where we started with this conversation, that commenting is the secret weapon for salespeople and brand building on LinkedIn. Because if I go share your post, it goes to 1% of my audience. But if I go comment on your post, It goes to nearly 30% of your audience. And I need to make sure that I just don't, congrats, thanks for sharing, responding to the author. I have to remember that my audience is listening. So that's one thing, to use the commenting strategy to realize that your audience and the person's audience is going to see that comment. Give them context. Explain to them why you're commenting, who you're commenting to, and how you see that applying in your business. Here's a second technique. If you see a prospect has posted something on LinkedIn and you know that you can help them with their business, don't approach them directly. Instead, write a post that references them. I read an interesting post the other day that was posted by Bill Potter, and here's what he had to say. And I quote Bill. And then I found this fascinating because in my business, I see a lot of my customers with the same issue. And so here's how I solve it for my customers. Boom. And I make this post. Now, here's what's going to happen, Bill, right? I make that post go live. What's going to happen? You're going to get notified. Mm-hmm. And that notification says, Richard Bliss mentioned you in a post. What's the first question you ask yourself?
What did he say? Yes.
That's the second question. The first question is, who's Richard Bliss? Right? It's like, who's this person who's talking about me? And then they're like, what did he say about me? And they go to the post. And what they see is you being mentioned as a reference. I read an interesting post from the other day from Bill. You're not being talked to, nor are you even being talked about. They're talking about the item or the thought or the question or whatever you brought up. But what they've done, what I've done if it was my post, I have sucked you in, brought you to my post, have introduced you to my services, introduced you to me and my network without me asking anything from you. I haven't sent you an email. I haven't sent you a connection request. I haven't sent you a phone call, nothing. But you are already looking at my profile, looking at my content, and seeing this. I presented this to a group of CEOs the other day. I was in Detroit, Michigan. And the CEO said, I hate LinkedIn. It's just a bunch of people selling stuff. Okay, well, true. And then I walked through this little exercise, and he said, you have completely changed my mind because I want every vendor out there to do exactly what you just talked about. If they have an answer for me, I want them to explain the answer. They can tag me, explain the answer. I can go safely read it at my own leisure, not feel pressure. And then if I find it interesting, reach out to them. And that's exactly what's happened. Several of my clients have taken me up on that little technique I just shared with you, and then have written me and saying that after tagging a prospect and talking about their problem in a post, the next day, the prospect cold called the sales rep.
Wow.
Said, hey, we don't know each other, but I saw your post and I'd love to talk. Can we set up a call? What sales rep or leader doesn't want their prospects cold? I mean, we all want that. So these are some of the things that are in the book, but these are some of the things that we also teach and train on how to use the platform so effectively to take you to that next level, to get beyond the cold emails and cold spams and actually start to engage with your prospects and your customers, investors, and partners in a way that they want to engage with you rather than feeling pressure.
That's fascinating. Most of our clients dream of being able to achieve a successful exit, and they know that they have to be able to strategically grow their business. And all these insights are, I'm sure they're going to find very helpful. But can you share a success story, in terms of, since our audience is looking to grow their companies successfully, what's a really dramatic success story that you've seen based on them implementing these LinkedIn strategies?
Well, I have at the top of my mind, it's an individual. He was the vice chairman of a multi-billion-dollar company. So the company had already found success, but he's looking to make a transition. He wanted to find a way to be more successful. His name is Tom Mendoza. Tom is the former vice chairman and president of NetApp, a $6 billion company. And the University of Notre Dame's College of Business has his name on the side of the building, Mendoza College of Business. And so when Tom and I connected, he was the one like, what do I need to be on LinkedIn for? But I encouraged him to do that to the point where he started to realize as he traveled and spoke and engaged, and his personal brand had already been big in his circle. But once we moved him to LinkedIn, he was shocked by the reach of his voice, where he would go and speak somewhere, and then people would be lined up outside to meet him because they had been following him on social media. When he retired, from actively in NetApp. He's still on many boards. He didn't do a press release. He did a LinkedIn post that was viewed by 450,000 people with thousands of comments. That was a personal brand. Another individual, David Riley, former CIO of Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, he came to me because he was making a transition. He was retiring out of that position and wanted to be on boards and wanted to be involved. And so what he did is approached me and said, how do we transfer my LinkedIn profile into not a job resume, but into a position that clients would find valuable, or somebody looking for a board position. And when he stepped onto several boards, and one of them came back and said, your LinkedIn profile helped us make that decision. And so what I would say to your audience is that if you take the time to invest in making yourself interesting to your audience, in growing that voice of being relevant in the conversations, the organization you represent becomes much more interested. And as you start to implement this, I'll give you another example. A client of mine is 2 offices in Boston and New York, Boston and London. And their CEO and I had worked together. And so I came in and presented to the whole company about how to, these things I've just shared with you, Bill. They became the #1 ranked company in the UK for active participation on LinkedIn because the employees suddenly saw the why they should be participating. And it helped them grow their business and grow their presence dramatically to the point where they were ranked #1. They had 1,000 employees and everybody was talking about their company and saw it because the employees themselves started to adopt the very activities that they had, thereby dramatically increasing that awareness. While these aren't direct correlations, what they are, though, is an understanding that LinkedIn is the single greatest power to increase the presence of your position, whether it's a visionary position where you want to take the company, whether it's an exit strategy where you want to go, or it's a personal mission of where you want to go with your own career and what you see. LinkedIn's going to give you that platform and that audience unlike any other social media platform. And it's going to accelerate that because the very people you're trying to influence are there paying attention. And so those are a couple of examples. I don't know if those help or address the question that you asked, Bill. But.
Well, I've got a couple more questions before we close out. One of the goals of all these companies is to sell, and typically they're going to sell to a private equity firm or a strategic. What is your experience with when those types of buyers are looking at companies? Are they savvy in LinkedIn to evaluate the presence of the leaders and the company in that space?
Yes and no. So you use the term savvy. No, but they are using LinkedIn to go check it out. So they're looking to make an acquisition. They're going to go on LinkedIn and they're going to check out all the leadership.
Right.
And they're going to form an opinion based on their LinkedIn profile. No banner, old picture, no traffic, no activity. You start wondering, is this person even relevant? Now, some older leaders, I don't like to use that term because I kind of fall into that category. They think that if they're too active on LinkedIn, that I know you're smiling, but that demonstrates to my grandson's 10. I mean, I've gotten to that age but if there is an old fashioned leftover. If I'm so active on LinkedIn, I'm not showing enough time to do my job. That's starting to go away. But here's what I tell leaders, Bill. I said, look, your inability to master a 21st century communication tool calls into question your ability to lead a 21st century organization.
Right.
And so these private equity firms, they're going to look to see, do you have presence? I mean, I worked with the CEO at one point, and when he got made CEO of a very large multinational company, he had 89 connections on his LinkedIn. And I said, look, you've been in this industry forever. You're being plastered across financial articles. And yet when people look at your LinkedIn profile, it doesn't appear that you know anybody. And while that's not a fair judgment, it is still a judgment.
It still is.
And so a LinkedIn profile is forming the initial opinion about your competency as a leader simply to see if you're present. And particularly for a younger generation who's checking you out, why doesn't my boss know what a hashtag is? Right? And I'm old enough to remember when the old lawyers didn't know how to put paper in the copy machine. I mean, we don't, right? We don't want to go there. Oh, by the way, on a side note, Bill, I know we just have a few minutes. You want to blow away a 10-year-old's mind or teenager's mind? Talk to them about a technology they hardly can conceive of and believe that you're telling them the truth. And you want to know what it is?
What is it?
Fax machines.
Oh, yes.
The fact that a teenager's mind will be blown when you say, look, take this piece of paper, draw on it, stick it in this machine, and it'll pop out somewhere else in the world with your drawing on it. Blows their mind. I mean, they are so in the digital world, it blows their mind. So I'm just going to say, that's you just want to impress your 10-year-old? There you go. Show them what a fax machine is.
Well, speaking of technologies, so what trends do you foresee shaping the future of LinkedIn and other online professional networking?
Well, there's an obvious one. Generative AI has stepped into that role, and so you even see LinkedIn adopting it where, hey, you want AI to write your post for you. Hey, you want AI to write your response for you. And we use a variety of tools here at Bliss Point for AI. I have some private bots that use the ChatGPT engine, but are trained on a private data set so that I can have it be me. I have a link that if occasionally I send out to people, say, hey, you want to talk to me? It has all my books, all my podcasts, all my speeches loaded up so that it uses the ChatGPT engine, but you're talking to only my data set. So you're going to see these personalized AI. And then what you're really going to see is them all starting to talk to each other. Now, we can talk about the end of the world or the singularity or whatever we want to talk about. But the ability for an AI tool to know me for my good and as my protector. So if I have an AI tool that I'm using to identify and track and keep track of everything that's going on in my life, now a nefarious player is going to be using that to take advantage of me. But if I have my own AI protecting me, and I already do, you do too. You get notified on your phone if there's an unusual transaction that's happened, right? Or the other day, my wife had to confirm the cancellation of an order. We're doing renovation on our house and everything. And there was something that a very large purchase she needed to cancel at the last minute. So she got on the web and interacted with a chatbot. And she said, I'm not sure it was a real person at the other end. And I said, actually, you're hoping it wasn't. Because the chatbot, when it says it did it, it did it.
Right.
A human's going to say, yeah, we'll get around to it, I'll do it. But no, if it's an AI tool, no, it went and did it right then. And you can almost, if it comes back and says, hey, I'm Susan and I took care of it, you can. So, I mean, this is kind of an interesting flip for us to be confident in the automation. It's taking care of us. So that's what I see happening, is that we're going to continue to see generative AI be a key player. But please, if you're using LinkedIn, be aware that authenticity, transparency, and trust are the key ingredients of that platform. So if you let the AI take over your message and your voice, you're going to lose a lot of that trust that you've built up. So that's one of the key things to think about as we move forward with this generative AI.
That's great information. Well, thank you, Richard. I mean, it's been a real pleasure. And thank you for tuning into today's episode of the Thrive Podcast. I hope our discussion with Richard was insightful, practical, applicable to your entrepreneurial journey. If you found value in today's conversation, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with your fellow entrepreneurs. Your support enables us to continue bringing valuable content to the community. Until next time, keep thriving.